You've been asking the universe for the wrong thing. Every prayer for an easy path. Every wish for obstacles to disappear. Every desperate plea for life to finally go your way. Wrong, all of it. Because the universe doesn't traffic in comfort. It deals in transformation. Carl Jung understood this in a way that most people never will. He discovered that what we call coincidence, what we dismiss as random chance, is actually the universe speaking a precise language. He called it synchronicity. And once you learn to read it, everything changes. Trust the universe to give you what you need, not what you want, what you need. That distinction is everything. Jung spent his life studying what he called the process of individuation, becoming who you truly are. He discovered that the universe, or what he termed the collective unconscious, speaks to us constantly through symbols, dreams, what he called synchronicity. Those meaningful coincidences that seem too perfect to be random. Here's what Jung realized that changes how you see every setback, every closed door, every moment when life doesn't go your way. He wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The universe isn't punishing you with obstacles. It's showing you what needs to heal within you. Every frustration is a mirror. Every difficulty is a teacher. Every person who triggers you is revealing an unintegrated part of your own psyche. Think about the last time something didn't work out the way you planned. A relationship ended. A job fell through. A path you were certain about suddenly closed. Your ego called it failure, called it bad luck, called it unfair. But what if yourself, that deeper intelligence Jung spent decades mapping, was actually protecting you, redirecting you, preparing you for something your conscious mind couldn't yet see? There's a story about a shepherd boy who kept having the same dream. Night after night, he saw himself at the Egyptian pyramids, a child telling him about treasure buried there. Most people would dismiss it, return to their sheep and their routine. But this boy couldn't shake it. The dream haunted him, whispered to him, pulled at something deep inside his chest. You know that feeling, that recurring vision of who you could become, the path you're afraid to walk, the dream you've learned to call impractical. Jung would tell you that dream isn't random. It's your psyche trying to communicate. What he called the self-capital S, that deeper intelligence within you, is sending signals. And when you ignore them, they get louder, more insistent, more disruptive. He documented this pattern in patient after patient. A recurring dream about water might return for years, until someone finally addressed their emotional repression. A persistent fantasy about travel might haunt someone until they honored their need for freedom. The psyche doesn't give up. It can't, because its job is to make you whole whether your ego cooperates or not. Jung called these recurring patterns the transcendent function, the psyche's built-in mechanism for healing and growth. It keeps presenting the same lesson in different forms until you finally learn it. The same type of toxic relationship with different faces. The same career pattern ending in burnout. The same financial crisis with different details. Not because you're cursed, but because you haven't integrated the lesson yet. The shepherd boy's name was Santiago. His story reveals something profound about how the universe actually works. When he finally decided to pursue his dream, sold his sheep, and set out for Egypt, everything seemed to go wrong. He was robbed on his first day, lost everything, sat alone in a foreign marketplace with no money, no plan, no hope. Sound familiar? You gather courage to chase your dream, and life immediately punches you in the face. You think, see, I knew I should have stayed safe. But here's what Jung understood that changes everything: that robbery wasn't punishment. It was redirection. Jung worked with a patient, once a successful businessman, who lost everything in a single day. His company collapsed. His marriage ended. His health failed. The man came to Jung desperate, broken, asking why God hated him. Jung listened quietly, then said something that shifted everything. He told the man that sometimes the psyche has to destroy your old life completely because you refuse to leave it voluntarily. That what looks like catastrophe is actually liberation. The man didn't believe him at first, but 6 months later he returned. He'd started a completely different career, one he'd dreamed about as a young man, but dismissed as impractical. He'd found a new relationship based on authenticity rather than performance. His health had returned. He told Jung, "I thought my life was ending, but my real life was finally beginning." This is the pattern Jung saw again and again. The universe doesn't give you what you want when what you want is actually keeping you small. It breaks down the false structures so the real you can emerge. If Santiago hadn't been robbed, he would have missed the entire journey. He would have arrived unprepared, unchanged, unable to recognize the treasure. The universe didn't give him what he wanted. It gave him what he needed: time to develop, lessons to learn, a self to discover. Jung described the difference between the ego and the self. Your ego wants comfort, safety, control. It's the voice that says, stay small, stay known, stay safe. The self is who you're meant to become, your essence, your destiny, what some call your personal legend. These two parts of you are in constant conversation, often in conflict. The ego wants what feels good now. The self wants what makes you whole. And Jung discovered something crucial: reality itself, that the universe consistently sides with the self, which is why your comfortable plans keep getting disrupted, why the safe path keeps closing, why you keep encountering the same patterns, the same struggles. It's not bad luck. It's a conversation you haven't learned to hear yet. Santiago learned this at a crystal shop. After being robbed, he worked for a merchant, saving money to return home. The merchant had dreamed for decades of making a pilgrimage to Mecca, but he never went. He was afraid that if he achieved his dream, he'd have no reason to keep living. So he kept it as a fantasy, a beautiful, safe, distant possibility. Jung called this living in the provisional life, postponing your real existence, waiting for the right moment that never comes. The merchant preferred longing to fulfillment, the fantasy of his unlived life, to the reality of actually living it. How many of us are crystal merchants, keeping our dreams at arm's length, saying someday, when the time is right, when I'm ready, never realizing that the universe is trying to push us out of the shop, that our psyche won't let us settle for an unlived life. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who your parents wanted, not who society expects, who you truly are." And the universe conspires to make this happen through what appears to be obstacles, but are actually invitations. Santiago noticed something while working at the shop. When he acted on intuition, when he followed small hunches, things worked. He suggested selling tea in crystal glasses. Business boomed. He was experiencing what Jung called synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that reveal the hidden order beneath apparent chaos. A butterfly landing at just the right moment, a stranger appearing with exactly the information needed, a book falling open to the precise page. These aren't accidents. Jung spent years documenting these phenomena. He discovered they increase dramatically when you're aligned with your true path, when ego and self are working together instead of fighting. Santiago met an old king in the marketplace. The king knew things, personal things, things Santiago had never told anyone. He drew in the sand the names of Santiago's parents and the girl he loved, details no stranger could know. Jung would recognize this as an encounter with what he called the wise old man archetype, a figure from the collective unconscious, that appears when transformation is near. The king said something that Jung echoed throughout his work. At a certain point in our lives, we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate. That's the world's greatest lie. Jung believed this deeply. You are not controlled by fate. You are in conversation with it. The universe presents opportunities, obstacles, omens, tests. You decide how to respond. You choose whether to read the signs or ignore them. The king told Santiago, "When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it." Jung would add a crucial distinction, and the universe conspires to give you what your soul needs, not what your ego wants. And those are rarely the same thing. Your ego wants the promotion, the relationship, the recognition. Your soul wants growth, integration, wholeness, meaning. The universe gives you situations that develop your capacity for what you truly seek, even if those situations look nothing like what you asked for. This is why the path to your treasure is never straightforward. Santiago couldn't teleport to the pyramids. He had to be robbed work in a crystal shop, cross a desert, fall in love, nearly die, learn to read omens, face his deepest fears, and become someone entirely different. Jung called this the process of individuation, the journey from unconsciousness to consciousness, from fragmentation to wholeness, from identifying with the ego to recognizing the self. Santiago was being transformed, alchemized from lead into gold, from boy to man, from dreamer to someone capable of living the dream. By the time he reached the pyramids, he wasn't the same person who'd had the dream. And that transformation, Jung would say, was what the universe was conspiring to give him all along. The treasure at the end was just confirmation. The real gold was who he'd become. So when you stand at your own crossroads, feeling the pull of something larger, hearing the call you cannot ignore, understand this. The universe isn't asking you to have it figured out. It's simply asking, will you trust? Will you sell your sheep? Will you leave the familiar? Will you believe that the recurring dream is not delusion, but direction from your deepest self? Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakes? The universe has been trying to wake you up. The question is, are you finally ready to open your eyes? Carl Jung discovered something that modern science is only beginning to understand. He wrote, "Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see it." Not a rare mystical experience. An ever-present reality. The universe is constantly speaking. Most people just don't know the language. There's a language older than words, deeper than logic, more precise than any human tongue. Santiago discovered it, not through study, but through necessity. Stripped of everything, sitting in a foreign marketplace, he had no choice but to learn a different way of communicating. He watched a candy merchant setting up his stall. They couldn't exchange words, but something passed between them. Understanding, recognition, human connection that required no translation. Santiago helped him set up. The merchant gave him the first sweet of the day. They'd spoken volumes without saying a word. Jung called this the universal language of symbols and archetypes. Patterns that repeat across all cultures, all times, all individuals. The language of the psyche itself. When you're truly aligned, when you're following what Jung called your personal legend, people respond. Doors open, resources appear, the path reveals itself. Not because you're lucky, but because you're finally broadcasting on the right frequency, speaking the language that reality responds to. Think about it like tuning a radio. When you're slightly off frequency, you get static interference confusion. But dial in precisely, and suddenly the signal comes through clear and strong. Most people spend their lives broadcasting on the wrong frequency, wondering why nothing works. They're speaking the language of ego-fear control and expecting the universe, which speaks the language of flow, trust, and synchronicity, to respond. Jung discovered something revolutionary about this. He found that when patients began to individuate, when they started becoming who they truly were, the rate of meaningful coincidences in their lives increased dramatically. It wasn't that they got luckier. It was that they became attuned to the signals that were always there. He documented one case of a highly rational woman who refused to believe in anything she couldn't prove scientifically. During a session, she was describing a dream about a golden scarab beetle. At that exact moment, Jung heard tapping at his window. He opened it, and a golden-green scarab beetle flew into the room, the closest species to a golden scarab found in that region. The woman's rational worldview shattered in that instant. She began to heal. Jung called these moments acts of creation in time. The universe speaking so clearly that even the most skeptical mind has to listen. Santiago learned from Urim and Thummim, 2 stones the king had given him. One black, one white. Yes and no. Tools for reading omens. But the king had told him something crucial: try to make your own decisions. The omens guide, they don't replace your judgment. Jung understood this balance perfectly. He wrote about the importance of both intuition and reason, both unconscious wisdom and conscious choice. The universe message isn't a command. It's a conversation. You have to participate. Santiago saw this play out again and again. A bird's flight, a stranger's comment, a sudden feeling in his gut. He'd have to decide, is this an omen? What does it mean? How should I respond? Sometimes he was right. Sometimes he was wrong. But he was learning to hear what Jung called the voice of the self. You've had these moments. You think of someone they call. You feel pulled toward a book, it contains exactly what you need. You take a wrong turn, end up exactly where you needed to be. Jung documented thousands of these synchronicity events. He proved they're not accidents, they're breadcrumbs, trail markers, the universe speaking its language. But here's what Jung emphasized: you can only hear it when you're quiet enough, present enough, awake enough. When your mind is screaming with anxiety about the future or regret about the past, you can't hear the whisper. The language of the world requires stillness to detect. Santiago learned this crossing the desert. In the beginning, every moment felt like crisis. But gradually, he learned to be present, to observe without constantly narrating, to feel without immediately analyzing. Jung called this developing the observing ego, the part of you that can witness without being consumed. And the desert began to speak to him. Through the wind, through the sand, through the silence itself. He started to understand what the caravan master meant when he said the desert tests everyone. She wasn't cruel. She was revealing, showing you who you really are beneath all the stories. There was a camel driver who told Santiago his story. He'd lost everything in a flood. His orchard, his livelihood, everything he'd worked for. He could have become bitter. Instead, he found peace. He said something Jung would deeply appreciate. We are afraid of losing what we have. But this fear evaporates when we understand that our life stories and the history of the world were written by the same hand. Same hand. Everything connected. Jung called this the unus mundus, the one world. Your personal story isn't separate from the universe's story. You're not isolated. You're part of a larger intelligence, a bigger pattern. What looks like disaster in your small story is often necessary in the larger narrative. This is what people misunderstand about manifestation. Jung never used that term, but he understood the principle. Real alignment isn't about visualizing parking spaces. It's about recognizing that your deepest desires, the ones that won't leave you alone, aren't random. They're how the universe calls you toward your role in the bigger story. Santiago met an Englishman obsessed with alchemy. The man had books, theories, formulas. He knew everything about alchemy intellectually. But Jung would say he didn't understand it at all. Because alchemy, Jung discovered, isn't really about metal. It's about consciousness, about transformation. Jung spent decades studying alchemical texts. He realized the ancient alchemists were describing psychological transformation in symbolic language, taking the lead of your unconscious, unexamined life and transmuting it into the gold of awareness, purpose, meaning. The philosopher's stone isn't a rock. It's a state of being. The elixir of life isn't a potion. It's the vitality that comes from living your truth. The Englishman was trapped in concepts. Santiago was learning alchemy by living it, by paying attention to omens, by trusting the journey, by allowing himself to be transformed. One taught the other, though neither realized it. The Englishman showed Santiago ancient wisdom. Santiago showed the Englishman that wisdom isn't something you acquire, it's something you become. Jung wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." This is the difference between knowing the path and walking it, between understanding a concept and embodying it. You can read every book, watch every video, but until you actually face your fears, you haven't learned anything. The caravan moved toward the oasis. Santiago watched everything: how the guides read the stars, how the animals sensed water, how the merchants knew when to be cautious. He was learning what Jung called active imagination, the art of dialoguing with the unconscious, of being present to the symbols and messages constantly flowing from the deeper self. Then the hawks appeared, 2 of them high in the sky. Santiago watched their flight, and suddenly a vision, clear and undeniable. An army approaching the oasis, an attack coming. Jung would recognize this immediately as what he called a waking vision, when the barrier between conscious and unconscious becomes permeable. Santiago could have dismissed it, but he'd learned to trust the omens, even when they made no logical sense, even when sharing them might make him look foolish. He told the tribal chiefs what he'd seen, and they listened, because men of the desert understand the language Santiago was learning to speak. The vision was accurate. The attack came exactly as he'd seen. Lives were saved because Santiago trusted what Jung called the objective psyche, the intelligence that knows things the conscious mind cannot. This is what quantum consciousness actually means, stripped of New Age fluff. Jung anticipated quantum physics when he described how observer and observed aren't separate, how consciousness and reality are entangled. When you change your level of awareness, you change what you're capable of perceiving, and therefore what you're capable of experiencing. Santiago had achieved what Jung called a spiritual awakening, though not in the religious sense. He'd awakened to the reality that there's an intelligence operating beneath the surface of things, a pattern, a purpose, a language, and he was learning to speak it. Jung treated a patient, once a young woman who kept having accidents, car crashes, falls, injuries that seemed random but followed a clear pattern. They always happened when she was about to make a major life decision. Jung recognized what was happening. Her unconscious was literally throwing her body into harm's way to prevent her from making choices that would betray her true self. He didn't treat her accidents as separate incidents. He treated her refusal to listen to her inner voice. Once she began honoring her intuition, trusting her deeper, knowing the accidents stopped completely. Her body no longer needed to scream what her mind refused to hear. This is how the universe works. It starts with whispers, gentle nudges, quiet omens. If you ignore those, it gets louder, stronger, more disruptive. Until finally, if you still refuse to listen, it creates a crisis so undeniable that you have no choice but to pay attention. The vision Santiago had about the attacking army, that was the universe speaking at maximum volume. And because he'd learned to trust the language, because he'd developed the courage to act on what he saw, lives were saved, including his own. If this resonates, share one synchronicity you've experienced recently. Let's create a community of those learning to read the universe's language. Your story might be the sign someone else needs. There is no coming to consciousness without pain, not as pessimism, but as observation. Transformation requires friction. Growth demands resistance. And the universe will test you to verify you're ready for what you seek. At the oasis, Santiago fell in love. Her name was Fatima. When their eyes met, time stopped. He knew with certainty that bypassed logic that this was the woman he'd been seeking. Jung would call this recognition of the anima, the soul image, the inner feminine that every man carries and seeks in the outer world. This is how real love works. It's not the Disney version. It's recognition, the soul knowing another soul. And it terrifies the ego because real love demands everything. Not possession, not security, not comfortable companionship, but willingness to support the other's becoming even when it costs you. Santiago wanted to stay. Forget the pyramids. Build a life with Fatima. It was beautiful, reasonable, and it would have been the death of his soul. Jung understood this perfectly. He wrote extensively about the danger of what he called participation mystique, losing yourself in another person. Fatima understood something Santiago was still learning. She said, "If I am really a part of your dream, you'll come back one day." She didn't beg him to stay, didn't make him choose between love and destiny. She knew that real love means letting the beloved fulfill their purpose. This is what Jung meant when he wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." True transformation requires both people to remain on their individual paths, to support each other's individuation, not merge into codependence. This is the test most people fail. You find something good, something safe, and you stop. You tell yourself this is enough. But Jung was clear: once you've awakened to your personal legend, once you've heard the call, settling becomes impossible. The self won't allow it. You can try. You can stay at the oasis. But the omens won't stop. The restlessness won't fade. The dream will haunt you. And eventually, you'll resent the very love you chose over your purpose. Fatima loved Santiago enough to send him forward. And in doing so, she guaranteed his return. Jung wrote, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking." Fatima chose love. Not power, not control, not fear. Love. Santiago met the alchemist shortly after, a mysterious figure who appeared like something from a myth. Jung would recognize him immediately as the wise old man archetype, appearing at the crucial moment of transformation. The alchemist was what Santiago was becoming. The future meeting the present. The alchemist tested him, drew his sword, held it to Santiago's throat, asked, "Who dares to read the flight of the hawks?" Jung understood the necessity of such tests. He wrote, "The psychological rule says that when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate. Santiago was making his inner knowing conscious, and the universe was testing whether he truly trusted it. The alchemist said, 'Courage is the quality most essential to understanding the language of the world.' Not intelligence, not knowledge. Courage." They rode together toward the pyramids. The alchemist said very little, just watched. Allowed Santiago to struggle with his own mind, his doubts, his resistance. Jung would approve completely. He believed transformation can't be given, it can only be earned. You have to walk through the fire yourself. One night, the alchemist said something that echoes Jung's entire body of work. "Listen to your heart. It knows all things because it came from the soul of the world, and it will one day return there. Jung called this the collective unconscious, the vast reservoir of human experience and wisdom that every individual psyche connects to. Your heart, your deepest intuition, has access to knowledge your conscious mind cannot reach. Santiago tried. He closed his eyes and listened. His heart was terrified. It said, "What if we fail? What if we die? What if the treasure doesn't exist? What if we should have stayed with Fatima?" The heart wasn't some enlightened guru. It was human, afraid, desperate for guarantees. Jung would say this is normal, healthy even. The psyche contains opposites, light and shadow, courage and fear, trust and doubt. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, but to proceed despite it, to hear the fear without being controlled by it. The alchemist smiled and said something Jung repeated in different forms throughout his work. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams. The fear of pain is worse than pain itself. The anticipation of loss worse than actual loss. We torture ourselves with scenarios that never happen. We avoid risks to prevent suffering we'll never experience. And in doing so, we create the very suffering we're trying to avoid. The suffering of an unlived life. Santiago's heart eventually quieted, began to trust, and when it did, it revealed something profound. Jung called this the voice of the self emerging. The heart said everyone on earth has a treasure awaiting them, but people no longer want to search for them. They see the world as threatening, and because they do, the world becomes threatening. This is what Jung meant by psychological projection. We don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. Fear creates the reality we fear. Distrust generates experiences confirming distrust. When you approach life as hostile, life responds with hostility. When you approach it as a conversation with something larger, it becomes that. Then came the ultimate test. They were captured by a hostile tribe. The alchemist without hesitation said Santiago was an alchemist who could transform himself into the wind, that he would demonstrate his power in 3 days. If he failed, they could kill them both. Santiago was paralyzed with terror. He had no idea how to turn into wind. Jung would recognize this as the ego facing its complete dissolution, its utter powerlessness. The moment when all your knowledge, all your control, all your strategies fail. The alchemist simply said, when someone makes a decision, they're really diving into a strong current that will carry them to places they had never dreamed of. For 3 days, Santiago struggled. Jung wrote extensively about what he called the dark night of the soul, the necessary descent that precedes transformation. On the 3rd day, with the entire tribe watching, Santiago began to speak, not to the men, but to the desert. He asked the desert for help. The desert taught him about love, about transformation, about everything changing into everything else. He asked the wind. The wind taught him about the universal soul that connects all things. He asked the sun. The sun taught him about the purpose of alchemy. Jung would see this as Santiago dialoguing with different aspects of the collective unconscious, with archetypal forces that carry universal wisdom. And finally, Santiago spoke to what he called the hand that wrote all, to the intelligence behind existence itself. In that moment, he understood. He saw that the soul of the world was part of the soul of God, and that his own soul was part of both. Jung called this the realization of the self, capital S. The recognition that individual and universal are not separate, but different expressions of the same reality. And the wind began to blow. The Simum, the most powerful desert wind, tore through the camp. When it cleared, Santiago stood on the far side. He had become the wind. He had done the impossible. Jung spent his life trying to explain this mystery. He wrote, "I cannot define for you what God is. I can only say that my work has proved empirically that the pattern of God exists in every person, and that this pattern has at its disposal the greatest of all energies for transformation and transfiguration of the natural being." Santiago had tapped into that pattern, that energy, that intelligence, not through force or technique, but through complete surrender, complete trust, complete alignment with the self. This is the Carl Jung teachings that changes everything. You are not separate from the power that creates worlds. You are an expression of it. When you remember that when you truly know it experientially, the impossible becomes possible. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Santiago had done exactly that. The alchemist brought him to a monastery and performed literal alchemy, turned lead into gold. The monk's eyes widened. Was this the secret? The alchemist divided the gold. One part for the monk, one for Santiago, one for himself, and one he gave back to the monk with instructions, "Keep this for the boy. Because everything that happens twice will surely happen a third time." Jung would appreciate this deeply. He understood patterns, cycles, the repetition compulsion. Santiago had been robbed twice. The third time was coming, but this time he'd be prepared. Not because he had backup gold, but because he'd learned the real lesson. Jung taught that the treasure isn't the external thing. It's the consciousness to recognize it, the capacity to receive it, the alignment to hold it. Santiago had developed all three. They rode toward the pyramids. The alchemist told a story about a Roman centurion who said to a rabbi, "I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word and my servant will be healed." Words spoken from the heart, the alchemist explained, those echo through eternity. Jung understood this. He wrote extensively about the power of genuine expression of words that come from the integrated self rather than the defensive ego. Santiago's journey wasn't about finding treasure. It was about becoming someone capable of speaking truth, living authenticity. They parted ways. Santiago rode alone to the pyramids, his heart beating faster. This was it, the moment he'd been moving toward for over a year, the fulfillment of the recurring dream. He reached the pyramids at sunset, fell to his knees and wept. Thanked God for everyone who had been placed in his path. Every teacher, every test, every moment. Jung would call this the attitude of gratitude, the recognition that nothing was wasted, everything was necessary. Then he saw it, a scarab beetle crawling through the sand where his tears had fallen. In Egypt, scarab beetles are symbols of God. Another universe signs. He began to dig. All night he dug, finding nothing. But he didn't stop. His heart told him this was the place. Jung emphasized the importance of trusting your inner knowing even when external evidence contradicts it, especially then. As dawn approached, men appeared, refugees from the tribal wars. They saw him digging assumed gold, beat him, robbed him, left him bleeding, and as they left, the leader mocked him. He said, "2 years ago, right here, I had a recurring dream that I should travel to Spain to a ruined church with a sycamore tree, that if I dug at its roots, I'd find hidden treasure. But I'm not stupid enough to cross a desert because of a dream." Santiago began to laugh. Through his pain, through his blood, he laughed. Jung wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder, a secret order." Santiago had just discovered that order. The treasure had never been at the pyramids. It was back in Spain, under the sycamore tree where his journey began. The universe had sent him to Egypt to learn what he needed to learn, to become who he needed to become, so that when he returned and found the treasure, he would be capable of receiving it. This is pure Jung. He wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." You have to leave home to find home. Go far away to discover what was close. Become someone new to appreciate what you already had. Santiago returned to Spain, to the abandoned church, to the sycamore tree. He dug, and there it was, a chest full of gold, precious stones, treasures beyond imagination, waiting for a shepherd boy who had the courage to follow his dream. He took out Urim and Thummim, placed them in the chest. They were part of his treasure now. Not for their value, but for what they represented. The moment he chose to trust, the decision to believe. And he felt the wind, the levanter blowing from Africa, but this time it brought Fatima's perfume. The touch of a kiss, his kiss traveling across the desert, reaching her lips. Because he'd kept his promise. He'd completed his personal legend, and now he could return. Jung understood this pattern perfectly. He called it circumambulation, the circular journey that brings you back to the beginning, but transformed. Santiago didn't have to choose between treasure and love, between purpose and connection. He had to pursue his purpose first, become whole first, complete the journey first. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances, both are transformed." If Santiago had stayed at the oasis, he would have loved Fatima from lack, from fear, from resentment. The love would have become bitter. But because he left, because he trusted, because he completed his transformation, he could return and love her from wholeness, from choice, from freedom. This is what the universe has been trying to teach you. You don't have to sacrifice purpose for love. Don't have to choose between calling and relationships. Don't have to abandon treasure for connection. But you do have to pursue your purpose first. Become whole first. Trust the journey first. Jung called this the principle of individuation. You must become who you truly are before you can genuinely connect with another. Otherwise, you're just two incomplete people trying to complete each other, which never works. When you do, when you finally dig under your sycamore tree and find the treasure that was always waiting, you'll understand. Every robbery was redirection. Every setback was setup. Every loss created space. Every test developed capacity. Every moment was exactly what you needed to become someone worthy of the treasure. The universe didn't give Santiago what he wanted. It gave him what he needed. A journey that transformed him, tests that strengthened him, lessons that awakened him, teachers that guided him, synchronicity that confirmed him, and ultimately treasure he could receive because he'd become someone capable of holding it. This is the alchemy Jung spent his life teaching, not turning lead into gold in a laboratory, but transforming your unconscious, fearful, limited ego self into your conscious, courageous, expansive self. The philosopher's stone is the wisdom you gain from the journey. The elixir of life is the vitality that comes from living your truth. Carl Jung said something near the end of his life that should be written on every wall. The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. Not to accumulate, not to achieve. To kindle a light, to become conscious, to awaken. Here you are. Having heard Santiago's story, having seen the pattern Jung spent his life mapping, the question now isn't whether you understand, it's whether you'll act. Because Jung was clear, understanding changes nothing. Only action transforms. Your personal legend is waiting. It's been waiting your whole life. That recurring dream, that persistent pull. Jung would say it's yourself trying to emerge. The deeper intelligence within you that knows why you're here. Everyone, when they are young, knows what their personal legend is. Children haven't learned yet to confuse wanting with needing, to substitute other people's dreams for their own. They know what makes them come alive, what calls to them. But then, as Jung documented extensively, something happens. A mysterious force begins to convince them it's impossible. Parents say, be practical. Teachers say, lower expectations. Society says, settle down. And gradually, the voice grows quieter. The dream becomes a guilty secret. Jung called this the betrayal of the self. And he believed it was the root of most psychological suffering, not trauma, though that matters, not circumstance, though that shapes, but the abandonment of your own essence, the refusal to become who you truly are. This is the world's greatest lie, that you've missed your chance, that it's too late. Jung treated patients in their 70s who were just beginning their individuation journey. Your personal legend doesn't expire. It just requires one thing, your willingness. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. But Jung would add, the universe conspires to give you what your soul needs, not what your ego wants. The conspiracy isn't to make it easy. It's to transform you into someone capable of receiving it. This is why your path has been difficult. Not because you're cursed, but because what you're seeking requires someone you haven't yet become. The treasure awaits. But first, you must become treasure-worthy. Every setback has been developing that capacity. Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Every heartbreak has been cracking your heart wider. Every loss has been clearing space. Every betrayal has been teaching discernment. Every failure has been refining your approach. Nothing has been wasted. Jung emphasized this repeatedly. Even your mistakes, especially your mistakes, are part of the individuation process. The dark parts you're ashamed of, Jung called them the shadow. And he insisted they contain the very power you need to become whole. The universe speaks in omens, in signs, in what Jung named synchronicity. You've been receiving messages your entire life. The book that fell at the right moment. The stranger who said what you needed to hear. The opportunity that appeared from nowhere. The door that closed before you walked into something wrong. These aren't accidents. They're the language Jung spent decades documenting. The conversation between your psyche and what he called the objective psyche, the larger intelligence orchestrating reality. The Carl Jung synchronicity principle isn't mysticism. It's describing actual mechanisms of how consciousness interacts with the world. But you have to learn to listen, to pay attention, to trust what you see instead of dismissing it, to act on intuition even when it makes no logical sense. This is what Jung meant by trusting the universe. Not passive waiting, but active collaboration. Santiago's treasure was under the sycamore tree all along, but he had to go to Egypt to become someone who could recognize it. Your treasure is closer than you think, but you can't receive it as you currently are. You have to make the journey. Jung wrote, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. The choice is yours. You can be like the crystal merchant keeping dreams at a distance, preferring fantasy to fulfillment. Or you can be like Santiago. Sell your sheep. Leave your comfort. Trust the omens. The universe is waiting for your decision, not because it needs something from you, but because, as Jung discovered, you're part of how consciousness evolves, part of how love moves through the world, part of how the impossible becomes possible. When you pursue your personal legend, you're not just serving yourself. You're serving the self, capital S. The larger intelligence trying to express itself through you. Jung called this the process of individuation, and he believed it was the central purpose of human existence. This is spiritual awakening in Jung's terms. Not transcending the world, but engaging it fully. Not escaping life, but finally living it. Not waiting for someday, but recognizing that today is the day. This moment is the moment. The universe signs are everywhere. Jung documented thousands. The path is revealing itself. The teachers are appearing. The synchronicity is speaking. The only question is, will you trust? Jung wrote. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Your recurring dream isn't fate, it's invitation. Your persistent longing isn't weakness, it's yourself calling you home. Trust the universe to give you what you need, not what you want, what you need. Trust that every closed door is redirection, every loss is making space, every test is developing capacity. Trust that, as Jung discovered, there's an intelligence operating beneath the surface of things. A pattern, a purpose. Trust that your heart knows the way even when your mind is confused. Trust that the omens are real even when others can't see them. Trust that your personal legend is not delusion, but destiny waiting for you to claim it. Jung spent his life proving this, scientifically documenting it, empirically teaching it practically. The self wants to emerge. The psyche wants to individuate. The universe wants to help. All it needs is your yes. And then, having trusted, take the step. Make the call. Have the conversation. Start the project. End what's killing your soul. Begin what terrifies you. Say what you've been afraid to say. The universe will meet you. Jung documented this over and over. When you take one step toward your destiny, synchronicity accelerates. When you show you're serious, reality rearranges itself. When you demonstrate trust, the universe demonstrates support. This is how ordinary shepherds find extraordinary treasure. This is how consciousness evolves. This is how the self emerges. This is Carl Jung documentary of your own life, and you're both the subject and the filmmaker. Your journey begins now, not someday, now. The universe has been preparing you. The omens have been speaking. The teachers have been appearing. The tests have been strengthening. Everything has been leading to this moment. Will you trust the universe to give you what you need? Will you finally say yes to your personal legend? Will you become the alchemist of your own life? Jung's final words to us were simple but profound. The world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you. Know who you are. Become who you truly are. The treasure is waiting. The journey is calling. The universe is conspiring. And you are ready. More ready than you know. Braver than you believe. Capable of more than you imagine. So go. Begin. Trust. The rest will unfold exactly as Jung promised it would. Because when you want something with all your heart, when you finally honor the call, you cannot ignore all the universe conspires in helping you achieve it. Not by making it easy, but by making you capable. Not by removing obstacles, but by transforming you into someone who can overcome them. Not by giving you what you want, but by giving you what you need. This is the promise. This is the path. This is your personal legend. And it's waiting for you to finally claim it. As Jung wrote in his final years, the greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown. So outgrow your limitations. Transcend your fears. Become who you were always meant to be. The universe is waiting. Your self is calling. And Santiago's story is showing you the way. Trust the universe. Trust the process. Trust yourself. And watch as everything you've been seeking begins to seek you back.